give in and kind of
So from personal experience, guys, in the year 2018, your girl got real crazy and decided to spend 4 months of 2018 doing Whole30, which I'm sure the two of you are immediately going to roll your eyes about.
I think he was in shock.
Not consecutive, because that's not a sustainable lifestyle. But over the course of that year, I did 4 different complete Whole30s. And I was not a super fun person to be around. I can't do things in balance when it comes to food sometimes and wellness sometimes. So the easiest thing to do was like, oh, let me press reset and do a Whole30. No, I pretty much immediately went back to being like a human garbage can for McDonald's and Pizza Hut and everything else. But for that period of time, I had a lot of relational problems. We live on the border of West Virginia. My boyfriend and I are big Mountaineer fans. Every home game up in Morgantown, like, we are in the blue lot, hanging out with our friends and having a good time. I went to 2 Mountaineer tailgates, sober as a newborn baby, and couldn't eat any of the food there. And I still managed to have a good time, but it was very different, and it was very trying to have holidays. I got my promotion to this job in the middle of a Whole30, and I didn't celebrate with food until after the Whole30 was done. Like, what kind of crazy person am I? Like, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity to get this job at the age of 29. And I'm like, now I have 1 week left. No balance. I have no balance when it comes to this kind of stuff. And there's so many aspects of food and eating that maybe don't exist with some of the other stuff that we've been talking about.
And I think it's a feast and famine mentality is kind of what happens. My sister was the same way and I think it stems from the polarizing belief of food. Like, food is either good or bad, and that's what it is. Yeah. And it's really that there's good and bad amounts of food, and a lot of that comes from like the Super Size Me, where Morgan Spurlock said that I ate McDonald's
Can I level with you and tell you that they made us watch that in high school, and every day of that week of my health class that we watched Super Size Me, I went and got chicken nuggets right after at lunch because it made me hungry for McDonald's. Probably the opposite of what it was trying to do.
Eating one food for a month, and that's the only food you eat. I don't care if it's apples. If you eat 5,000 calories of apples every day for a month, you're not going to be healthy by the end of it. So having this idea that, well, I'm going to lose weight, so I'm going to go Whole30 or vegan. I'm going to go all in. Well, you do that for the most amount of time you can, couple weeks, maybe a month. And then you're like, yeah, like you mentioned, I'm going to become a human garbage can for whatever food is available, which like that, but that's what happens over and over and over in repeating cycles, is that I'm going to go all in and then you're all out, as opposed to like, hey, maybe once a week I'll have donuts or pizza or something. Maybe every other week I'll have chicken fingers, balance it out. But people don't want to balance. They want to be extreme.
You're starving the system, like whether it's a carb or, meat or whatever, you're starving yourself. And then when it gets to that point where you can't go any longer, you just,
when I want a result, I want a result. And so now I know if I ever need to be in like a cocktail dress in like a short period of time, I can do a Whole30 and lose weight, but I'm going to be a miserable person. So nobody talk to me. Stay away from me. I'm not pleasant.
I wish you would wear a sign.
Well, I would never. There's no chance. There's no chance right now. And I give people warnings. But the way that Nick introduced vegetables, that's harder. What you're talking about, the way that you introduce vegetables into your diet, is really what we are trying to get people to do with their mental health and their experiences. But it's much harder to slowly introduce something that's good for you instead of do the nutritional scapegoating of, well, this thing is what's bad for me. I'll get rid of this thing. People get rid of relationships. They dump jobs. They move cities, move apartment complexes. They're doing everything except for the thing that matters to try to create that change. And we want immediate results. So
something to think about too, drugs or food or whatever, the food that is unhealthy is very rewarding to us, can be rewarding to us, or at least it initially was rewarding, but we're taking something away. Mm-hmm. And you're not necessarily replacing it with something that is exactly rewarding. So if you're moving from, cookies to kale,
Ew.
You know, you're not going to replace, especially if you're eating to fill some void or, you know, because of loss or coping with a loss or whatever. If you don't fill your reward buckets with something else that's healthier. So if you're not engaging more with people and relationships, if you're not exercising, if you're not, you know, listening to music, sleep, doing something very rhythmic, you know, things that are very rewarding to the brain, then it's going to be much harder to change because you are stopping something that is pleasurable and not replacing it with something that's pleasurable. So unless you can make kale really rewarding and pleasurable,
I don't think it's possible.
I don't think it's possible, right? So you're going to have to...
I've had some good kale, but it's never going to hit the same place as a chocolate chip cookie. You know what I mean?
Because that happens with drug addiction where it's like, okay, you got to stop this. And if you don't stop this, you're going to get into major legal trouble and you're going to go to jail or you're going to die. But there's nothing for them to replace whatever that drug was doing for them in that moment. So the idea that they could go, you know, some people might be able to do cold turkey, but chances are they don't have that kind of addictive gene that's probably driving that. They aren't
1 in 7.
They're not that 1 in 7. So if they're able to do that cold turkey, they probably don't have that addictive
they don't have the addictive brain, the addictive body.
So, you know, I think, but the people that really, the brain chemistry gets so changed by, you know, the drug or the food or whatever, it's going to be much harder to kind of get out of that.